The day I died, Mira Zhao was crying into a microphone beneath the graduation banner while everyone around her chanted her name like she had saved the school from burning down. I remember that detail more clearly than the truck, more clearly than the taste of blood in my mouth, more clearly than the way my fingers wouldn't close around my phone when I tried to call my mother. The banner said Northgate Academy Final Rank Ceremony, gold letters, white satin, fake ivy curling around the stage lights. Mira stood at the center in her pressed navy blazer, trembling just enough to look humble, with my old answers printed inside the folder hugged against her chest. She didn't thank me, of course. She thanked discipline. She thanked her parents. She thanked the teachers who believed in her despite jealousy from classmates. Then she lifted her perfect report, every subject marked first, and said, "Some people are born bitter because they can't accept being second." The auditorium turned toward me. Not all at once. That would have been kinder. It happened in pieces, row by row, like a wave of heads snapping around to watch the girl who had apparently tried to sabotage the school's angel. I was standing by the side door, because I had been told not to come closer to the stage. My own rank had fallen from 3rd to 27th after the final exam answer scandal, the scandal she built from the very answer sets I gave her, the scandal everyone believed because I had no proof, no allies, and no idea how far a smiling girl would go to keep a crown. I walked out before the ceremony ended. I remember the sun slicing through the glass doors. I remember Myra's voice following me through the speakers, soft and wounded, saying, "I forgive her." Then Tyre screamed. Then the world tilted. Then I opened my eyes to the smell of chalk dust and lemon disinfectant, with my cheek stuck to a practice exam booklet and a red pen mark across the page, where my younger self had written the wrong solution to question 12. Above me, the classroom fan clicked once, twice, 3 times. The bell had not rung yet. My heart thrashed so violently, I almost vomited onto my desk. Across the aisle, Mira Zhao leaned over with her perfect pink pencil case and whispered, "Lena, you still have your old final answer files, right? Can I borrow them tonight? Just to compare methods. I swear I won't copy." And that was when I knew I had returned to the exact morning I handed her the key to my grave. I did not answer her immediately. In my first life, I had smiled because I was exhausted and flattered and desperate to be liked by someone everyone adored. Myra's request had seemed harmless then. Everyone shared practice notes before finals. Everyone traded old mock papers, old answer structures, old teacher comments. The difference was that my old answers were not ordinary notes. I had kept every marked answer script from the previous 3 years of Northgate's internal finals, including the subject-specific patterns teachers repeated, the weird ways they phrased trick questions, the topics they loved hiding inside extended responses, and the mark scheme language that turned an average answer into a full-credit one. My father used to say I studied like a detective. I hated that he was right. I had folders labeled by teacher, term, year, and exam mood because teachers had moods even when they pretended not to. Mr. Halden always included a statistics interpretation that looked easier than it was. Ms. Perrin loved making ethics questions sound emotional when the rubric wanted cold structure. Dr. Voss pretended not to repeat questions, but he repeated skeletons. Compare, challenge, evaluate, justify, always in that order, like he was building the same animal with different bones. I had created prediction grids no one else bothered to make. I had written sample answers for topics not yet tested. I had also written decoy answers because when I practiced, I deliberately solved some questions in the most tempting wrong way and then annotated why they failed. That was the folder Mira wanted. In my first life, I gave her everything. She photocopied my correct answers, learned my phrasing, copied my structure just loosely enough to look like genius, then leaked my decoy answers under my name 2 days before finals. She told everyone I had been selling guaranteed answer packs. She cried when questioned, claimed I had pressured her to use them, and produced screenshots, so polished they should have had a frame around them. I still remembered the disciplinary officer's tired voice. "Lena, even if your intentions were generous, distributing answer materials compromises academic integrity." Generous. That word had followed me down the hallway like a dog with its teeth showing. This time, I stared at Myra's soft, hopeful face and noticed details I had missed before. The way her eyes did not blink while waiting, the way her fingers already rested on the edge of my desk, the way she spoke loudly enough for two nearby girls to hear me refuse or agree. She was not asking privately. She was placing a stage beneath my feet. So I smiled. Not kindly, not sharply. Something in between, like a door closing without a slam.
No, y whisperat.
I'm not giving you my old answers. Her expression stayed sweet for half a second too long, and then the smallest crack appeared at the corner of her mouth. She laughed as if I had made a joke badly, and she was choosing to rescue me. I don't mean your real notes, silly.
Just the old answer sets.
You always say old exams help you relax. The girls in front of us, Elise and Nura, turned slightly.
Perfect.
She wanted witnesses, she could have them. I kept my pen. In my previous life, my hands had shaken whenever I disappointed someone. Now they were still. I know exactly what you mean. I slid my booklet into my bag. And I'm still saying no.
The air changed.
It was subtle, but classrooms are ecosystems of subtle violence. A dropped pencil, a chair leg scraping, one person inhaling too sharply. Mira lowered her voice. Are you mad at me? There it was, the hook she used on everyone. Not, can we discuss it? Not, is there a reason? Just a tiny emotional hand around the throat. If I said yes, I was jealous. If I said no, I was unreasonable. If I explained, I was insecure. In my first life, I had drowned myself in explanations. This time, I gave her none. I'm keeping my work private for finals. Ms. Perrin walked in before Mira could answer, carrying a stack of revision packets and a coffee cup with lipstick on the rim. Every student straightened because finals had turned us into obedient little machines. Mira sat back, but her smile did not return fully. She looked at me as if I had spoken in a language she had not authorized. During roll call, I tested the world around me. Same date, same seating chart, same announcements. Finals began in 6 school days. The ranking ceremony, the one where Mira destroyed me publicly, would happen in 16. My death would happen in 16 days, 23 minutes after I left the auditorium, at the crosswalk outside the West Gate. I wrote those facts on the inside cover of my notebook, not because I needed reminding, but because writing them made the impossible behave like evidence. Then I wrote 3 rules beneath them. Do not share old answers. Do not defend myself emotionally. Leave proof before every move. The bell rang. Chairs screeched backward. Mira did not approach me again in class. That was how I knew she was angry. Mira never struck when people could see the blade. She waited until the hallway was noisy, until bodies pressed around lockers, and everyone's attention fractured. Then she appeared beside me with a carton of strawberry milk she did not drink and said, I didn't realize you thought I was your enemy. That sentence would have worked on the old Lena. The old Lena had been raised to hear pain inside accusation. She would have panicked, apologized, opened her bag, handed over the folders, then gone home feeling guilty for needing boundaries. I remembered being her like I remembered wearing wet clothes, heavy, cold, embarrassing in public. I turned my locker dial slowly. I don't think about you that much, Mira. That was the first pattern interruption. Not cruelty, exactly. Cruelty would have given her something to use. Indifference gave her nothing but air. Her smile stiffened.
Wow.
Finals really change people. Death changes people more, I almost said but swallowed it. Instead, I pulled out my lunch, my calculus binder, and the little black USB drive attached to my keychain. In my first life, that USB had contained everything. I had left it in the library computer for 9 careless minutes, and Myra's friend Hannah had returned it to me with a look of saintly concern. Later, the copied files appeared in the dean's office with timestamps arranged to make me look guilty. This time, the USB was empty except for one file, a document named OLD_final_answers_master. Inside it was a single sentence, nice try. I had made it during first period while Ms. Perrin explained essay introductions. The real archive was already moving. At break, I borrowed the media lab under the excuse of printing history sources. I created 3 encrypted backups, one in cloud storage under my mother's old email, one in a password-protected archive hidden inside a folder of scanned piano sheet music, and one on a new drive I bought from the vending machine outside the IT office. Northgate was the kind of school that sold USB drives beside granola bars because panic was profitable. I did not just protect my notes, I changed them. I separated correct answers from decoys. I added watermarks invisible unless printed in grayscale. I inserted tiny phrasing differences into every copy I might allow someone to see. If a leaked answer appeared later, I would know which version had escaped. In my first life, proof had always arrived too late. This time, proof would be sitting politely before the crime even entered the room. At lunch, Mira sat at the central table beneath the trophy cabinet, surrounded by girls who leaned toward her like flowers toward a lamp. She laughed too brightly when I walked past. No one else noticed the performance. I did. I had watched that laugh become testimony. By the end of the second day, the rumor had already found shoes. It walked into chemistry before me, sat down in my chair, and looked up wearing my face. Lena's gatekeeping finals materials. Lena thinks she's the only one allowed to rank. Lena has answer predictions but won't share because she's scared Mira will beat her. Rumors at Northgate did not spread like wildfire. They spread like perfume. No one admitted they were wearing it, yet the whole room smelled the same. In my first life, I had fought rumor with truth, which was like trying to mop rain off a sidewalk. This time, I let the scent thicken. I answered questions with short, boring sentences. I'm using my own materials. Everyone should study independently. Ask your teacher for official resources. Boring was useful. Boring could not be clipped into drama. Mira, however, needed drama because drama made her the victim before she became the thief. On Thursday morning, she arrived with swollen eyes and no concealer, a strategic disaster. She dropped her books beside me in literature even though her seat was across the room. I couldn't sleep, she whispered. I kept wondering what I did to make you hate me. Half the class went silent while pretending not to. Miss Perrin had not arrived. The stage had returned. I looked at Myra's trembling hands, at the careful placement of her phone screen down on my desk, at Hannah hovering near the door. Recording then. Or baiting. You didn't make me hate you, I said, clearly enough for the room to hear. I just don't share private exam answers. But you shared with Elise last term. I shared official worksheet solutions after the assessment was over. So, I'm not trusted? Correct. The word landed harder than I expected. Someone behind us coughed. Myra's tears stopped moving. For one raw second, her face emptied, and I saw not the golden girl, but the accountant beneath, calculating cost. Then she pressed a hand to her mouth and ran out. Hannah followed. The room erupted after 3 stunned breaths. Elise whispered, "That was harsh." I opened my notebook. It was accurate. Miss Perrin entered, saw the empty seat, and asked where Mira had gone. Noura said, "Bathroom." Then she looked at me, as if I had pushed Mira into it. I could feel the old shame searching for a familiar place inside me, but the room it used to live in had burned down with my first life. The next move came from authority, because Mira understood something I had not learned until too late. A rumor becomes real when an adult repeats it in polished language. At 2:10 p.m., I was called to Deputy Hart's office. In my first life, that office had smelled like old carpet and peppermint tea when they accused me of distributing compromised materials. It smelled exactly the same now. Deputy Hart sat behind her desk with a tablet open, her expression arranged into professional disappointment. Beside her was Mr. Halden, the math coordinator, who looked more uncomfortable than guilty. Mira sat in the visitor chair with a tissue folded in her lap. Not crumpled. Folded. That mattered. Truly distressed people ruin tissues. Performers preserve them for camera angles. Deputy Hart gestured for me to sit. "Lena, there seems to be tension around exam preparation resources." "There is a rumor," I said. "That's different." Mr. Halden's eyebrows rose. Deputy Hart blinked once. "We're not here to assign blame. We're here to ensure fairness and well-being." Well-being. Another soft word people used when they wanted compliance without admitting force. Mira sniffed. "I never wanted trouble. I only asked because Lena's answer archive helped our study group last year, and now she's acting like I'm going to steal from her. Her voice cracked beautifully on steel. I almost admired it. The girl could have been an actress if she didn't prefer academic murder. Deputy Hart turned to me. Do you possess old answer materials that may give you an unfair advantage? There it was. The trap had widened. If I said yes, I was hoarding. If I said no, I was lying. If I explained nuance, they would turn nuance into policy. I placed my bag on my lap and removed a folder I had prepared that morning because rebirth is wasted if you only react. Inside were printed pages from Northgate's student handbook, highlighted sections on personal study notes, peer sharing, and academic misconduct. There were also emails from teachers over the years praising my reflective corrections and encouraging students to create personal revision logs. I slid the folder across the desk. I have my own marked work, correction notes, and practice answers. The handbook classifies those as personal study materials. I am not distributing them. I am not selling them. I am not claiming they are official predictions. I'm keeping them private specifically to avoid misconduct. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone expecting panic receives paperwork. Mr. Halden leaned forward despite himself. Deputy Hart's lips pressed together. Myra's tissue finally crumpled. Deputy Hart cleared her throat. That's responsible, but perhaps you understand how your refusal might feel exclusionary during a stressful period. In my old life, I would have apologized for making theft emotionally difficult. This time, I smiled gently. I understand stress. That's why I think students should rely on teacher-approved materials. I turned to Mr. Halden. Sir, could the math department upload extra official revision solutions for everyone? That would solve the fairness concern without using my private notes. He looked relieved to be offered a door out of the room.
Yes.
Yes, that's reasonable. I can arrange that. Myra's head turned toward him too fast. Her plan had been to pressure me into sharing, not to create resources everyone could access. Perfect rank did not come from everyone improving. It came from her improving by standing on someone else's spine. Deputy Hart nodded slowly. Good suggestion. Mira, would that help? Mira smiled, but this one had teeth under it. Of course. I only wanted everyone to have support.
Lie, lie, lie.
But not a useful lie yet. I stood when dismissed. At the door, Deputy Hart said, Lena, one more thing. Try to be mindful of tone. Finals can bring out defensiveness. I turned back. I will be mindful of evidence. Mr. Halden almost smiled. Mira did not. When I left, I did not go to class. I went to the IT office and requested my login access history, saying I wanted to check for suspicious activity before finals because of resource tension. Mr. Keene, the IT technician, loved two things: rules and being asked for help by students who used the word suspicious. He printed a report showing 3 failed login attempts from an unknown library terminal the previous evening. In my first life, I had ignored those attempts as password mistakes. This time, I circled them and asked him to email me a copy. By the time I returned to biology, Mira was laughing again. Her performance had recovered. Mine had just begun. The strangest part of rebirth is not knowing the future. It is realizing the future was never as mysterious as you thought. So many disasters announce themselves politely. A friend asks to borrow something too casually. A teacher phrases a warning as concern. A rival cries in exactly the right hallway. A file goes missing, then returns with no fingerprints anyone cares to check. I started watching the small announcements. On Friday, Henna asked whether I still used my old locker because the lock looked loose. On Monday, someone moved my seat in the library reservation system from camera-covered table 2 to blind corner table 9. On Tuesday, a new anonymous post appeared on the student forum. Should top students be required to share old answer banks if they were made using school feedback? The comments bloomed exactly as Mira needed. Some students argued fairness. Some argued kindness. One account called Golden Rank said, "Funny how people build success from teachers and then act like it's private property." In my first life, I would have posted a furious reply under my real name. This time, I posted nothing. Instead, I took screenshots, saved timestamps, and asked myself what she needed next. She needed access. If social pressure failed, she needed a leak. If a leak failed, she needed a forgery. And if forgery failed, she needed me angry enough to look guilty. So, I became calm to the point of insult. I attended official revision sessions. I asked questions in front of teachers. I shared generic study tips with anyone who asked. I even made a public folder containing official worksheet links, blank practice templates, and a guide on how to build your own correction log. That folder spread faster than the rumor, because students did not actually care about Myra's moral theater as much as they cared about passing finals. The more useful I became without giving away my private answers, the weaker her story grew. She adapted by becoming sweeter. "Lena's guide is helpful," she said loudly in homeroom. "I just hope she knows none of us are entitled to her private things." It sounded like support. It was poison with a ribbon. She was trying to make my boundaries seem so precious, so dramatic, that any later breach would feel like irony. I clapped once from the back of the room. Everyone turned. "Thanks, Mira." The clap was not loud enough to be rude, just strange enough to break her rhythm. Pattern interruption number 2. Praise the performance before the performer finishes. There was one more thing I changed before the finals reached us. In my first life, I had attended Myra's last-minute open study circle in the glass seminar room because she invited everyone, and I did not want my absence to look bitter. It had been staged kindness. She brought pastries, assigned seats, asked people to read answers aloud, and guided the conversation until I explained 3 of my best methods in front of half the top cohort. Later, when her exam responses resembled those methods, she could say, "We discussed that in the study circle." Everyone heard it. I had handed her not only my work but witnesses for her theft. This time, when the invitation appeared in the group chat, Mira Zhao, final push study circle tomorrow. No competition, just community. I watched the old trap dress itself in pastel emojis. Students reacted with hearts. Someone tagged me. "Lena, you coming?" I waited 15 minutes, long enough that my answer would not look eager or scared, then wrote, "I can't attend private student-run exam prediction sessions, but I uploaded a list of official teacher resources here. Good luck, everyone." That sentence did 3 things. It refused. It named the risk. It gave an alternative. Mira replied with a smiling sticker. Then, "Of course. We'll keep it positive." The next afternoon, I walked past the glass seminar room on my way to the library and saw her at the head of the table, surrounded by open notebooks and little plates of almond biscuits. She looked like a saint hosting a fundraiser. For a second, she lifted her eyes and saw me through the glass. She raised one hand in a delicate wave. I raised my official revision packet in return and kept walking. The room blurred behind me, but I heard Daniel ask, "Wait, are we allowed to predict questions like that?" And someone else say, "Lena said not to use private answer banks." That was the power of boring public sentences. They entered rooms without you. Later, Elise told me the study circle had turned awkward after 2 teachers walked past, and Mira abruptly changed the topic from likely essay frames to healthy sleep routines. I laughed for the first time in days, not loudly, not freely, but enough to remind myself that fear was not the only emotion my body could still produce. 3 days before finals, the decoy took the bait. Not the obvious decoy USB, with nice try inside it. That would have been too childish for Mira. She was careful. She would suspect anything I left unattended. So I gave her something better. A decoy hidden behind effort. I created a folder on my school cloud titled archive_old_answers_2019_2025. Inside were 6 subject folders, each containing long, realistic answer files with my writing style, my annotations, my corrections, even scanned teacher comments copied from harmless old assignments. The answers were not nonsense. Nonsense would expose the trap. They were plausible but fatally misaligned. They used outdated rubrics, missed command terms, overemphasized topics teachers had retired, and contained subtle calculation shortcuts that produced neat wrong results on current-style questions. Each file had a different invisible watermark. Then I shared the folder link with no one. I simply opened it on a library computer, left the tab minimized, and sat at table 2 under the camera, pretending to search for a pencil in my bag. Hannah arrived within 4 minutes. In my first life, I had believed coincidences because believing malice made me feel ugly. This time, I watched her reflection in the dark edge of the monitor. She paused behind me, glanced at the minimized tab, and said, "Oh, Lena, Miss Perrin wants you in the staff room." That was new. In the old timeline, she had said the printer jammed. Mira must have adjusted because I no longer printed anything important. I looked up.
Now. Yeah.
She seemed annoyed. Did she say why? Hannah's smile fluttered. No, just go. I stood, leaving my bag, but taking my real USB and phone. Then I walked not to the staff room but to the nonfiction aisle, where I could see the computer station through a gap between shelves. Hannah waited 6 seconds after I left. 6. Then she slipped into my chair and touched the mouse. My screen woke. The minimized folder opened. Her shoulders tightened. She plugged in a slim silver drive. I took 3 photos before the librarian asked if I needed help finding something. I found it, I said. Hannah copied the folder in under a minute, removed her drive, and walked away with a serene expression of someone who believed theft was only theft if the victim screamed. I returned to the computer, closed the tab, and sent Mr. Keene a message. Could you please preserve the access logs for Library Computer 14 between 12:40 and 12:50 today? I'm concerned someone used my account while I was away. Then I went to Ms. Perrin and asked whether she had called me. She frowned. No, I thanked her and left without explaining. Evidence first. Drama later. That night, Mira posted a photo of her desk, herbal tea, pastel highlighters, motivational sticky notes, and a blurred stack of papers positioned just clearly enough for people to recognize my answer layout if they had seen my guide. Caption: grinding quietly.
No shortcuts.
Comments flooded in. Queen, rank 1 energy, teach me your discipline. Finals monster. I stared at the photo until my anger cooled into something usable. In my first life, seeing her with my work had felt like watching someone wear my skin. This time, I noticed the watermark. The visible corner showed a phrase I had planted in the literature file: ethical ambiguity of institutional reward. That phrase corresponded to Decoy Set C, the version I had designed for someone accessing the library computer. Decoy Set C had one special feature. Every essay answer was strong in the first half and collapsed in the second. It would impress a thief skimming for structure. It would fail under real marking because it ignored the final directive in each prompt. Mira had never truly studied my methods. She studied the appearance of my certainty. That was why she needed old answers. She did not want understanding. She wanted the costume of it. I did not comment. I did not confront. I reviewed my real notes, slept 7 hours, and woke from a nightmare of the truck only once. My mother found me sitting in the kitchen at 3:12 a.m., drinking water with both hands. Finals, she asked softly. In my first life, I had hidden everything from her because I did not want to worry her. Then I died alone under an ugly white sky while she was buying oranges. This time I said, someone at school is trying to frame me. Her face changed in a way I will never forget. Not panic. Not disbelief. Alignment. She sat across from me and said, tell me from the beginning. So I did, not the rebirth, not the death, but every current fact. The pressure, the office meeting, the login attempts, the library incident, the stolen decoy. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took my folder of evidence and flipped through it like a judge. You will not meet any staff alone from now on, she said. You will email summaries after every conversation. You will forward everything to me. And Lena? I looked up. Do not try to win by suffering quietly. Quiet suffering is just unpaid labor for people who harm you. That sentence stitched something inside me. Finals at Northgate began with mathematics because the school believed fear should have a clean opening ceremony. The exam hall was the gymnasium, transformed into rows of single desks, clocks, water bottles, clear pencil cases, and the collective smell of adolescent dread. In my first life, I had walked in with my stomach burning because anonymous posts had accused me of hoarding and selling answers. Mira had walked in glowing, carrying the confidence of a girl who had already memorized my best structures. This time, she looked almost the same. Almost. Her ponytail was perfect, her calculator approved, her nails pale pink, her smile gentle enough to reassure teachers. But when she sat 2 rows ahead of me, she bounced her right foot under the desk. Once.
Twice.
Stop. 3 times. She was nervous. Not because she lacked material, but because stolen certainty has an expiration date. The papers were distributed face down. Mr. Halden stood at the front and read the rules. You may begin. The hall filled with paper turning. I opened the booklet and almost laughed. The first section looked familiar because Dr. Voss, no, wrong subject. My reborn brain still layered teachers like ghosts because Mr. Halden had used his usual skeleton. But the details had shifted exactly as the official revision session hinted. Question 8 appeared to be the same optimization problem from my old answer bank, except the constraint reversed after line 3. Decoy set C solved the old version. The real method required checking the boundary condition before differentiating. I looked up just once. Myra's pen moved fast. Too fast. A perfect student reads the trap. A thief recognizes the costume and runs into it. By the final extended response, I was calm enough to hear the clock tick. I wrote cleanly, checked twice, and closed my booklet with 5 minutes left. Mira was still writing when time was called. Her shoulders were high. When Mr. Halden collected papers, she kept her fingers on hers for half a second too long. Small announcement. After the exam, she emerged into the courtyard surrounded by admirers asking how she found it. Balanced, she said. Honestly, fair if you prepared properly. She looked at me on properly. I smiled. I agree. The word landed between us, like a sealed envelope. The second exam was literature, and literature was where Mira had planned to bury me. In the old timeline, she used my essay structures to beat me by 2 marks, then claimed I had tried to pressure her into buying answer predictions. The accusation worked because my language appeared in her essay and in the leaked files. This time, her stolen decoy set C would betray her more elegantly than any confession. The exam prompt asked us to evaluate how silence functions as resistance and complicity across 2 texts, with explicit reference to narrative perspective. Decoy set C contained a beautiful practice essay on silence as dignity and survival. It did not address complicity. It did not compare perspective. It would earn praise from a lazy reader and lose marks from his parent, who was not lazy, only dramatic. I wrote my essay from scratch because revenge is satisfying but competence is safer. Halfway through, something unexpected happened. The fire alarm chirped once. Not a full alarm, just a sharp electronic hiccup. Every head lifted. The invigilator froze. The sound stopped.
Continue, she said.
Pattern interruption from the universe itself. For 10 seconds, concentration shattered across the hall. Pens paused, eyes darted. Someone cursed under their breath. I saw Myra's head bend lower, her hand racing as if she feared the thought might escape. I realized then that she was not adapting. She had memorized. Memorization hates interruption. It needs the road exactly as rehearsed. My thoughts, however, were built with exits. I returned to my argument and added 1 paragraph I had not planned about how false silence can protect a false innocence until public truth forces speech. It was risky. It was also good. When the exam ended, Miss Perrin collected our booklets herself. At Myra's desk, she paused. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. Long enough for me. Her eyes moved across the first page, then the second. Her brow tightened. In my first life, that tiny frown had appeared when she read my supposedly leaked decoy answer and believed I had been careless. This time, it appeared while she read Myra's real exam. History had not changed its face, it had changed its target. Biology should have been the safest exam for Mira because she was genuinely good at it. That is one thing I want to be honest about. She was not stupid. Villains are easier when they are incompetent, but Myra's danger came from the fact that she had talent and still chose shortcuts. She could memorize pathways after 1 reading. She could draw diagrams cleanly enough that teachers praised her margins. She could explain enzyme kinetics to weaker students in a voice so patient it made them trust her. But she hated uncertainty. Biology finals at Northgate always included an unfamiliar experimental scenario, and uncertainty was where she reached for borrowed certainty, like a handrail. In Decoy Set C, I had included an old-style answer about enzyme inhibition that treated every plateau as competitive inhibition and every shifted curve as a concentration issue. It looked convincing because the graph language was polished. The current syllabus, however, had changed emphasis toward evaluating experimental design. When the biology paper opened, I saw the trap within the trap. The graph was not asking us to identify inhibition first. It was asking us to critique whether the conclusion could be drawn from the data at all. A student thinking carefully would discuss control variables, sample size, temperature stability, and the missing repeat trials before naming the likely mechanism. A student copying the decoy would rush straight to inhibitor type. 2 rows ahead, Mira underlined the graph title 3 times and then wrote half a page without pausing. I almost felt sad. Almost. Then I remembered her microphone voice. I forgive her, and the sadness passed. After the exam, Daniel argued in the courtyard that it was definitely competitive inhibition. Adrian disagreed quietly, saying the question was about validity. Mira smiled and said, I mentioned both. That answer bothered me because it might have been true. For one slippery second, I wondered if she had adapted after all. Then she added, but obviously the marker wanted the mechanism. Adrian's eyes flicked toward me, not because he knew our war, but because good students recognize bad certainty. That moment mattered. Mira had always relied on social confidence to cover academic gaps. Now, in front of peers who had actually studied, confidence was beginning to sound like noise. Adrian became an accidental witness because he had no interest in our drama, which made him useful in a way friends rarely are. We had competed since year 10 without speaking more than necessary. He was quiet, square-shouldered, always carrying a blue mechanical pencil and a water bottle covered in physics stickers, the kind of student teachers trusted because he looked mildly alarmed by compliments. After biology, he found me by the vending machines and said, You built the public resource folder, right? I nodded, ready for accusation, praise, or some combination that would become labor. Instead, he said, Good call. People were getting weird about private notes. It was such a plain statement that I did not know what to do with it. Thanks. He bought canned coffee, grimaced at the first sip, and continued. Mira asked me last week if I had copies of your old integrated studies essays. My fingers tightened around my water bottle. What did you say? I said no. Then she said she heard you shared them with me. I said I don't use other people's essays because I don't want to inherit their mistakes. He looked at me then, realizing how that sounded. Not that yours have mistakes. They do, I said. That's the point. Adrian nodded as if that made perfect sense. Anyway, I thought you should know. In my old life, no one had told me the small things soon enough. They had waited until after the scandal, after the ceremony, after death made gossip feel tragic. Adrian telling me in the present felt like someone placing a plank over a hole before I stepped into it. Could you write that in an email? I asked. He blinked, then understood.
Sure.
10 minutes later, he sent a short message, documenting that Mira asked whether he had my old integrated studies essays and falsely implied I had shared them with him. No drama.
No adjectives.
Beautiful evidence. I forwarded it to my mother and added it to the packet. When Adrian later beat us all for rank 1, people acted as if he had come from nowhere. He had not. He had simply been studying while the rest of us learned how dangerous performance could be. By midweek, Myra's orbit began to wobble. Her friends still surrounded her, but their questions had edges now. Did you get the same answer for math question 8? What did you write for complicity? Was the biology graph about enzyme saturation or inhibition? Mira answered everything with confident fog. There were multiple approaches. I focused on nuance. It depends how you interpret the data. Those phrases sound intelligent until you hear them from someone hiding an empty room. I stayed away. I had no interest in becoming the villain before the reveal matured. But distance did not mean passivity. Each evening, I wrote a record of the day and emailed it to myself, my mother, and after my mother insisted, to a new address she created solely for evidence. Each record was factual, boring, and time-stamped. At approximately 12:44 p.m., Hannah Liu accessed Library Computer 14 while my account was active after telling me Ms. Perrin requested me in the staff room. Ms. Perrin later confirmed she made no such request. At approximately 8:17 p.m., Mira Zhao posted a desk photo containing visible material matching the layout of my private answer archive decoy set C. My mother wanted to report everything immediately. I wanted to wait until the finals ended. Not because I enjoyed danger. Because partial exposure would allow Mira to cry, apologize, claim misunderstanding, and rebuild herself before rankings. I needed the pattern complete. Pressure, theft, use, academic failure, and attempted blame. One missing link, and she would slither out of the room wearing innocence like perfume. The hardest part was pretending not to see the trap closing. On Thursday, after the biology exam, Deputy Hart stopped me near the staircase. "Lena, I've heard there may be concerns about unauthorized materials again." Her voice was careful. Too careful. "From whom?" I asked. "I'm not at liberty to discuss informal student concerns." Translation: Mira had started preparing the accusation. In my first life, this was the moment I had panicked and handed over my real archive to prove what was mine. That archive became the rope. This time I said, "Please put any concern in writing and include the specific policy involved. I'll respond with my parent copied." Deputy Hart's expression cooled. Adults dislike when students know procedure. It makes scolding feel underdressed. "That may not be necessary." "Then I'll wait." I walked away before she could soften me into staying. The final exam was integrated studies, the subject Northgate used to separate excellent students from ranking obsessives. It combined data analysis, ethics, source evaluation, and a brutal extended response that could swing the entire final rank. In the old timeline, Mira scored full marks. I scored badly after my answer structure appeared in the leaked pack, and the panel decided my script looked rehearsed. I had not understood then how perfectly she chose the battlefield. Integrated studies rewarded not memory but judgment, yet the old answer archive gave the illusion of judgment if copied cleverly. This time, Decoy Set C contained a particularly delicious poison, a model response on academic competition and equitable access to resources. It argued that high-performing students have a moral duty to share privately developed materials if those materials were shaped by teacher feedback. It sounded noble. It ignored intellectual ownership, consent, and the difference between institutional support and personal labor. It also used a phrase Mira loved because it made selfishness look like justice: knowledge hoarding. When I saw the real exam prompt, my fingers went cold despite everything. The prompt read, "Evaluate the ethical limits of collaboration in high-stakes academic environments." I looked at the ceiling and almost believed in comedy. Of course. Of course the universe had chosen a question that placed our entire war inside an exam booklet. Around me, pens began moving. 2 rows ahead, Mira went completely still. For 1 second, I wondered if she understood. If she would abandon the stolen answer and think. Then her pen touched paper and began sprinting. She could not resist. The decoy essay was too perfect a mirror of her public persona. She would write it because it sounded like her. She would write it because it accused me without naming me. She would write it because the trap had been built from her favorite lie. I wrote my own answer slowly at first, then faster. I argued that collaboration becomes unethical when it uses coercion, emotional pressure, unequal access, or misrepresentation, that consent matters even in competitive spaces, that institutions should provide fair resources without forcing individuals to surrender private labor, that integrity is not generosity performed under threat. I did not mention Mira. I did not need to. Every sentence felt like laying bricks over an old grave, not to bury myself again, but to mark where I had climbed out. When finals ended, the school entered the dangerous quiet before rankings. Students pretended to relax while refreshing grade portals. Teachers carried stacks of papers like sacred tablets, and Mira became unbearable in a new way. She stopped performing injury and began performing forgiveness. I hope everyone gets what they deserve, she told Elise in the cafeteria, loudly enough for my table to hear. Even if this period revealed people's hearts. Hannah nodded solemnly beside her, though her own heart had been photographed beside a library computer. I ate my rice without looking up. Noura leaned toward me. Aren't you worried? In the old life, Noura had believed Mira until the very end, then sent me a message after my death. I didn't know it got that bad. I know because my mother showed me when I was reborn.
No.
That part one did not know. I only imagined it, and sometimes imagination is crueler than memory. This Noura was not guilty yet. She was just a girl inside a fog. About what? I asked. People saying you had some private answer bank and maybe Mira has proof. If she has proof, she should submit it. Noura blinked. That's it. That's it. She looked disappointed, maybe because she wanted fear, maybe because fear would make the rumor more entertaining. I did not feed her. The next day, Mr. Keene emailed me the preserved access logs. Library Computer 14 had copied a large folder from my school cloud to an external drive at 12:47 p.m. under my active session. The CCTV request, however, required administrator approval. My mother handled that. She wrote a calm email so devastating I read it 3 times for pleasure. She did not accuse. She requested. She referenced policy. She used phrases like student data security, potential unauthorized access, and formal preservation of evidence. Adults respect danger more when it arrives in legal shoes. Deputy Hart responded within 2 hours, suddenly very available for a meeting after final marks were released.
Perfect.
Mira wanted the ranking ceremony as her stage. I wanted the meeting before it as mine. The marks appeared on Friday at 4 p.m. Northgate's portal always crashed for the first 5 minutes because 300 terrified teenagers attacked it at once. I sat at my desk with my mother standing behind me, one hand on the back of my chair. My father called from work and stayed on speaker without saying much. When the page loaded, I saw my results in black text. Mathematics 96, Literature 98, Biology 95, Integrated Studies 99. Overall provisional rank 2. My breath left me. Not because second disappointed me, because second meant the first life had not stolen my ability. It had only buried it under lies. My mother squeezed my shoulder. Good, she said, and her voice cracked on the single syllable. Then I refreshed the ranking list.
Giang Wan, Adelian Cho.
Rank 2, Lena Marlowe. Rank 3, Noura Basim. Rank 4, Elise Park. Rank 5, Daniel Ivers. I scrolled. Mira Zhao appeared at rank 11. Not ruined by ordinary standards. At Northgate, rank 11 was excellent. But for Mira, perfect Mira, golden Mira, the girl whose entire identity had been laminated around rank 1, 11 was not a number. It was a public injury. My phone began vibrating before I processed the list. Group chats exploded. Where's Mira? No way. Is the portal broken? Adrian first? Lena second after all that drama is crazy. Then a message from an unknown number arrived. You think you're clever. I stared at it until my mother asked what happened. I showed her. She took a screenshot before I could. Do not respond. I did not. 10 minutes later, Mira posted on the student forum under her real name. That was how I knew she was bleeding. Her post read, "It's heartbreaking that finals integrity was compromised by private answer banks and selective sharing. I hope the school investigates how some students benefited from materials others were denied." She did not name me. She did not have to. Comments ignited. Some defended her. Some mocked her. Some asked why her rank dropped if she had the materials. That last question spread faster than the accusation. I watched the narrative split, and for the first time in both lives, Mira could not hold all the pieces. Our meeting was scheduled for Monday morning, 3 hours before the final rank ceremony. In my first life, that morning had been a blur of humiliation. I had been summoned, questioned, warned not to cause disruption, and seated away from the stage while Mira prepared to ascend. This time, my mother walked beside me through the admin corridor in a cream blouse and black trousers, carrying a folder so organized it deserved its own award. Deputy Hart waited in the conference room with Principal Arden, Mr. Halden, Miss Perrin, Mr. Keene, Mira, Myra's parents, and Hannah. The seating arrangement told the whole story. They had expected mediation, maybe apology, maybe a gentle institutional broom sweeping sharp things under soft carpet. Then my mother set 3 copies of our evidence packet on the table and said, "Before anyone characterizes this as interpersonal conflict, we are here to discuss unauthorized access to my daughter's school account, attempted coercion regarding private academic materials, and potentially defamatory allegations affecting her standing." Principal Arden's face sharpened. Myra's mother stiffened. Mira herself looked pale but beautiful, which was one of her talents. Hannah stared at the table. Deputy Hart began, "Let's make sure we maintain a supportive tone." My mother smiled. Supportive of the truth, yes. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I had spent my first life wishing someone would stand beside me without asking me to make my pain more convenient. Principal Arden asked for a summary. I gave it. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. I described the request for old answers, my refusal, the rumor, the meeting about resources, the failed login attempts, Hannah's false claim that Miss Perrin called me, the library access, the copied folder, Myra's desk photo showing the decoy layout, the forum post after rankings, and the anonymous message. Every time Mira tried to interrupt, Principal Arden raised a hand. Not to protect me, I think. To protect the school from the shape of what was forming. Mr. Keene confirmed the logs. Ms. Perrin confirmed she had not summoned me. Mr. Halden confirmed I had requested official resources for everyone rather than sharing private answers. Then my mother placed the photographs from the library on the table. Hannah made a sound like a chair leg breaking. Hannah confessed first because accomplices often mistake confession for escape. I didn't know it was private, she cried. Mira said Lena always shared those files before and was only withholding them to hurt everyone. She said if we could see them, we could prove Lena was being unfair. Mira turned toward her slowly. It was the first honest expression I had ever seen on her face. Pure hatred. That's not true. Hannah sobbed harder. You told me to copy whatever was open. You said she left it there on purpose because she wanted us to beg. Myra's father stood. This is absurd. They are children under exam stress. My mother did not even look at him. Children can still access accounts without authorization. Principal Arden asked Mira whether she had used any copied materials during finals. Myra's eyes filled instantly. I studied many resources. I don't know what Hannah copied. People send things around all the time. That was close to good. Very close. In the old timeline, it would have been enough. But I had built the trap around specificity. I opened my folder to the watermark key. The materials copied from Library Computer 14 contained altered model answers with invisible and visible markers. Mira posted a photo showing decoy set C. Several phrases from that set also appear in her public forum post. Ms. Perrin leaned forward. What phrases? I handed her the page. She read silently. Her expression changed. Knowledge hoarding, she said. Institutional reward. She looked at Mira. These exact phrases appeared in your integrated studies response. The room went still. Myra's lips parted. A lot of people use those words. Ms. Perrin's voice cooled. Not in that sequence. Not with the same flawed argument. Your essay was elegant, Mira, but it ignored the prompt's core requirement. That is why it lost marks. There it was. Not my accusation. A teacher's academic judgment.
Clean. Public.
Fatal. Myra's mother whispered. Mira? Myra's face collapsed, then rebuilt itself badly. I was under pressure because Lena made everyone feel like if we didn't have her answers, we were behind. I felt the old anger rise, so suddenly that my vision sharpened at the edges. This was the lie underneath every lie. Harm me, then blame me for having something worth stealing. I placed both hands on the table. You did not lose rank because I refused to give you my work. You lost rank because you trusted stolen answers more than your own mind. No one spoke after that, which was wise. Principal Arden requested a private administrative recess. Myra's parents protested. My mother insisted any decision affecting me be provided in writing. Deputy Hart looked like she wanted to dissolve into peppermint steam. We waited in the corridor while they discussed consequences. Through the frosted glass, I could see silhouettes shifting. Mira stood several feet away, arms crossed, tears drying on her cheeks. Students passing the admin office slowed when they saw us. The ranking ceremony was less than 2 hours away. The school loved ceremonies. Ceremonies made achievement look clean, as if no one had ever sharpened their teeth behind the curtains. Mira suddenly stepped closer. My mother moved, but I shook my head. I wanted to hear whatever mask she chose next. Myra's voice was barely audible. You set me up. I looked at her. I protected myself. You planted wrong answers. I planted my property in my account. Her eyes flashed. You knew someone would take them. I knew you would try. For the first time, she did not deny it. She breathed through her nose like she was trying to keep herself from shattering in a way cameras would not forgive. You don't understand what it's like, she said. My parents don't accept second. Teachers expect perfect. Everyone expects perfect. You could afford to be liked for being smart. I had to be flawless. In another story, maybe that would have been the wound that explained the monster. In mine, it was just another attempt to hand me the bill. I died with everyone thinking you were flawless, I wanted to say. Instead, I said, then you should have learned instead of stealing. She flinched, and I knew that one reached whatever was left of her. The door opened before she could answer. Principal Arden called us back inside. The decision was phrased in institutional language, but I heard the bones beneath it. The final ranking would stand. Myra's integrated studies paper would undergo academic review due to unauthorized material use, and pending the outcome, her eligibility for honors recognition would be suspended. Hannah would receive a disciplinary notice for unauthorized account access. The school would issue a statement clarifying that personal study notes were not school-distributed answer banks and that allegations against unnamed students should stop. My name would not be mentioned. Myra's perfect rank, her perfect ceremony, her perfect forgiveness speech, all of it cracked before she reached the stage. By the time the administrative meeting ended and the ceremony approached, the school's machinery began rewriting itself in real time. I saw it from the corridor. A staff member carrying a printed program back toward the office, another whispering into a headset, Miss Perrin crossing out a line on a speech draft with the violence of a woman killing a mosquito. In my first life, Myra's name had appeared under 3 headings. First overall, Integrity Medal, Peer Inspiration Award. I had not known until later that the last award was discretionary, chosen by staff after student nominations. She had accepted it while my alleged misconduct hung in the air, turning the award into a public verdict. This time, the program changed. Adrian remained first overall. My name remained second overall. The Integrity Medal quietly shifted to a girl named Priya Nandakumar, who ran the tutoring club and once stayed after school for 2 hours helping Year 7s organize science folders. The Peer Inspiration Award disappeared entirely, replaced by a generic community recognition for the whole graduating cohort. Institutions hate admitting they almost crowned the wrong person, so they redesign the crown and pretend it was always a bowl. While we waited, Deputy Hart approached me alone, then saw my mother watching and corrected her angle, so she addressed both of us. Lena, I want you to know the school appreciates your cooperation. That was not an apology. It was a receipt for my silence. My mother said, we appreciate written follow-up. Deputy Hart swallowed. Of course. I looked through the auditorium doors, where students were filling seats, unaware of how close they had come to applauding another lie. I did not feel triumphant yet. I felt awake. There is a difference. Triumph is loud and temporary. Wakefulness is the thing that keeps you from placing your hand back into the same fire because it happens to be warm. The auditorium looked exactly as I remembered, and nothing like it. Same gold letters. Same white satin. Same fake ivy. Same rows of students whispering beneath bright lights. But in my first life, I had stood by the side door, like an exile. This time, I sat in the second row between Adrian Cho and Nura Basim, my blazer pressed, my hair pinned back, my mother in the parent section with her phone resting face down in her lap. Mira sat 3 rows behind me. Not with the honorees. Not on stage. 3 rows behind, surrounded by a silence, so loud it was almost a person. People kept turning to look. Not openly. Northgate students were trained in polite cruelty. They glanced through reflections, through phone screens, over shoulders while pretending to stretch. I did not turn. Principal Arden began with the usual speech about perseverance, integrity, and community. In my old life, those words had felt like stones placed on my chest. Now they floated past me, harmless because I no longer expected institutions to mean every word they displayed on banners. Adrian received rank 1 with the startled humility of someone who had studied honestly and not built a religion around being admired. I received rank 2. When my name was called, the applause was uneven for half a second, then stronger. I walked to the stage. Every step crossed a ghost. Here was where Mira had smiled. Here was where the auditorium had turned against me. Here was where I had learned that public shame has a temperature. Principal Arden handed me the certificate and said softly, "Well done, Lena." I looked at the audience. Myra's face was pale, her lips pressed together, her eyes shining with tears she could no longer spend profitably. For one mad moment, I thought about forgiving her into the microphone the way she had forgiven me in my first life. I thought about saying, "Some people are born bitter because they can't accept being 11th. The line would have destroyed the room. It would have followed her for years. It would have tasted like sugar and metal. Instead, I took my certificate, nodded, and returned to my seat. Revenge is not always the sharpest sentence. Sometimes revenge is refusing to become the kind of person who needs one. But the story did not end when the applause did, because endings are rarely polite enough to arrive on schedule. After the ceremony, students spilled into the courtyard, loud with relief and hunger, their ties loosened, their futures suddenly less theoretical. In the old timeline, I had walked out alone toward the west gate. The truck had run the red light at 3:23 p.m. I had replayed that moment in nightmares even before I lived it again, which makes no sense, but death is not famous for logic. This time, at 3:12 p.m., my mother touched my elbow. "We're leaving through the east gate." I froze. I had not told her about the truck. I had not told anyone. Why? Because I parked on the east side. Simple.
Ordinary.
World-altering. I looked toward the west gate through the glass doors. Students crossed in clusters. A delivery truck waited at the light, engine rumbling. My body went cold. The light turned green for pedestrians. A boy stepped off the curb while looking at his phone. The truck lurched forward, then stopped hard, horn blaring as a teacher shouted. No one was hit. Not this time. The boy jumped back, laughing shakily, his friends swearing at him. The truck driver leaned out and yelled something I could not hear. The world continued. My death passed through the intersection without finding me. I gripped my certificate so tightly the edge bent. My mother noticed. "Lena?" I turned away from the west doors.
East gate, I said.
We walked together. Outside, the air smelled like hot pavement and jasmine from the school fence. My phone buzzed. A message from Nura. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what was true." Then Elise, "You handled everything better than I would have." Then an unknown number, probably Mira, though I never proved it. "You ruined my life over answers." I deleted it. Not because I was above anger. Because some messages are hooks, and survival means learning which hooks not to bite. At the east gate, my mother unlocked the car. Before getting in, I looked back at Northgate Academy. The glass, the banners, the windows full of reflected sky. In my first life, I had thought winning meant being believed by everyone. Now I understood something cleaner. Winning meant I believed myself early enough to act. Mira disappeared for 3 days after the ceremony. Northgate pretended not to gossip, which meant the gossip became more sophisticated. Some said she had been suspended. Some said she transferred. Some said her parents threatened legal action. The truth, when it arrived, was less dramatic and more satisfying. She remained enrolled, lost honors eligibility for the term, and had to complete an academic integrity program before graduation records finalized. Hannah received a conduct mark and avoided me so aggressively she once walked into a janitor's cart to escape the same hallway. The school issued its statement in the driest language possible, which of course made everyone read it twice. It clarified that privately created study notes and marked personal responses are not communal school resources, that unauthorized access to student accounts is a serious breach, and that students should refrain from making allegations online. No names.
No fireworks.
But the timing did what names did not. The forum went quiet. Goldenrank deleted every comment. Myra's old admirers revised history in real time. I always thought she was intense. She put too much pressure on herself. Lena was smart to keep records. Honestly, boundaries are important. Their conversions did not flatter me. Crowds are not moral, they are meteorological. They change direction when pressure shifts. Still, I accepted the practical benefit. Peace does not require everyone to become good. Sometimes it only requires them to become afraid of being caught. Ms. Perrin asked me to stay after literature one afternoon. In my first life, I had feared being alone with teachers after the scandal. This time, I left the door open. She noticed and did not object. Your final essay, she said, holding my script, was one of the strongest I've read in years. I waited. Compliments from adults often carry assignments behind them. But I'm more interested in your argument. You wrote that coerced generosity is not collaboration. That's a mature distinction. I looked at the red comments on the page. I learned it recently.
She hesitated.
I'm sorry if, earlier, I contributed to pressure around your materials. It was not a perfect apology. Perfect apologies are rare outside imaginary courts. But it was something.
Thank you, I said.
I did not absolve her. She did not ask me to.
That, too, was something.
After Myra's honors were suspended, her parents requested one more meeting without me. Principal Arden refused to discuss my evidence without my mother present, so the meeting did not happen. That small refusal spread among parents faster than the student gossip. My mother heard it from another mother at the grocery store, who whispered beside the apples, "Is it true a girl hacked Lena's account?" My mother, who had become terrifyingly elegant in crisis, said, "The school is handling an unauthorized access matter," then chose mandarins as if she had not just fed the rumor a legally balanced meal. At home, she told me, and we both laughed until my father came in asking what was funny. But laughter did not erase the strange grief that followed. 4 days after the ceremony, I kept preparing for attacks that did not arrive. I checked my bag twice. I photographed my desk before leaving classrooms. I backed up files I did not even need anymore. Survival habits do not retire the moment danger loses. They stand at the door waiting for instructions. One night, my father found me scanning old handwritten notes at the dining table and said, "Are those still important?" I looked at the pages. Practice answers, teacher comments, my own corrections in 3 colors. I don't know. He sat across from me. My father was not as sharp as my mother in conflict. He was gentle, sometimes too gentle, the kind of man who believed most misunderstandings could be fixed with tea until life taught him otherwise. When you were little, he said, you used to hide your best drawings under your mattress because a cousin once traced one and said it was hers. I had forgotten that. Or maybe I had buried it because the pattern embarrassed me. You cried for 2 days, he continued, and then you started signing your name in the middle of every picture, not the corner. He smiled sadly. You have been learning this lesson for a long time. I ran my finger over a margin note Miss Perrin had written years earlier. Original insight. I wish I had learned faster. You learned when you could. That was another sentence I kept. Not every truth arrives in time to prevent the first wound. Some truths arrive in time to prevent the wound from becoming your identity. The last time Mira spoke to me, the school year was nearly finished. I found her in the archive room behind the library, not because I was looking for her, but because I needed old newspapers for a scholarship essay, and the archive room was where Northgate stored things it wanted to preserve without seeing daily. Trophy plaques, cracked photo frames, outdated uniforms, dusty boxes of exam booklets tied with string. Mira stood by the metal shelves holding a stack of her own marked finals. For a moment, she looked so ordinary it startled me. No audience, no phone, no folded tissue, just a tired girl with red eyes and a rank she could not polish. She saw me and laughed once, without humor. Of course. I considered leaving. Then I didn't. Some doors only close if you watch them. She looked down at the papers in her hands. My integrated studies review came back. And they kept the mark. That's fair. Her mouth twisted. You always say things like that now. Like a judge. In my first life, that would have hurt because I wanted to be warm. Now I knew warmth without boundaries is just light spilling from a broken house. What do you want, Mira? She leaned against the shelf. Dust floated between us. I want to know if you hated me before I asked. The question was so strange, I almost told the truth badly. Yes, because I watched you destroy me. No, because that version of you had not done it yet. Both answers were impossible. I didn't hate you when you asked, I said. I recognized you. Her eyes narrowed. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. She looked away. For once, she had no prepared response. The silence grew. Not comfortable, but honest enough to stand in. Finally, she said, I thought if I stopped being perfect, everyone would leave. I thought of her table after the ceremony, the empty seats, the girls who had once leaned toward her like flowers and then turned toward the next light. Some did, I said. She flinched. I could have softened it. I did not. But perfection didn't make them stay either. It just made them applaud while you performed. Her eyes filled. This time, the tears looked inconvenient. Do you feel better? She whispered. I thought of the truck, missing me. I thought of my mother's hand on my chair. I thought of my own name called, without shame attached. Yes, I said. She laughed again, and a tear slipped down her cheek. At least you're honest. I'm trying to be. I took the newspapers I needed and left her there with her papers, her dust, and whatever self remained after the crown cracked. Graduation came without prophecy. No banner turned sinister. No microphone became a weapon. No truck waited like punctuation outside the gate. Adrian gave the valedictory speech because rank 1 earned that right, and he used it to thank his grandmother, the cafeteria staff, and everyone who shared official resources without making group chats terrifying, which made half the hall laugh and several teachers look embarrassed. I graduated with honors. Mira graduated without special recognition but with her name intact, which was more mercy than she had planned for me. Our eyes met once across the courtyard afterward. She did not smile. I did not either. There was nothing left to perform. My mother took too many photos. My father cried behind his sunglasses and denied it badly. Noura hugged me and apologized again. Elise asked if we could keep in touch. I said maybe, which was honest enough. That evening, I opened my old answer archive one last time. Not because I needed it, because I wanted to understand the object that had carried so much hunger. The folders were neat, obsessive, full of my younger self trying to build safety from patterns. I felt tenderness for her. She had not been foolish for making them. She had been foolish only for believing everyone who admired her work respected her ownership of it. I moved the real archive into a private drive, deleted every decoy except the watermark key, and created a new document titled Things I Will Not Give Away to Be Liked. The first line came easily, my labor. The second, my evidence. The third, my peace. I sat with the cursor blinking after that, listening to my mother washing dishes downstairs, the ordinary clatter of a life that had continued. Then I added one more line, my second chance. People think rebirth means you get to redo everything perfectly. They imagine dramatic reversals, public confessions, enemies collapsing under spotlights. There was some of that, yes. I will not pretend I didn't enjoy watching Myra's perfect rank break in finals today, because I did. I enjoyed the moment her stolen certainty failed her. I enjoyed the way the truth walked into rooms before I had to beg for it. But the real miracle was quieter. It was a girl saying no before the knife entered. It was a mother believing her daughter before the school decided whether she deserved belief. It was walking through the East Gate while death missed its cue. It was learning that my old answers were never the most valuable thing I owned. The most valuable thing was the answer I gave when Mira asked for them again. Sweet voice, open hand, trap waiting beneath the desk.
No.
One word. 2 letters. A whole life returned to me. The scholarship essay I wrote after everything was technically about resilience, but I refused to turn my pain into a clean, inspirational product. I wrote about systems instead. How schools praise collaboration without teaching consent, how competition makes students confuse access with entitlement, how girls especially are trained to make their labor soft, shareable, and emotionally available until refusing becomes a character flaw. I wrote that kindness without choice is not kindness. I wrote that fairness cannot mean forcing the prepared to become public property, while the manipulative call it community. Ms. Perrin read a draft and underlined one sentence 3 times. A boundary is not a locked door against others. It is the wall that keeps your own house standing. She said the line was strong. My mother said it was expensive because I had paid for it. Both were right. When the scholarship committee later asked in an interview whether I believed academic environments should be more collaborative, I said yes, absolutely, but collaboration should be built by institutions, not extracted from individual students through guilt. The panel chair looked up from her notes and smiled in a way that told me she understood more than the question asked. I received the scholarship in July. It was not the biggest one. It did not make headlines. But the letter came addressed to me, earned by me, untouched by Myra's hands, and I pinned it above my desk like a window. I also kept the bent certificate from the ceremony, the one I had gripped when the West Gate truck failed to become my ending. Most people would have asked for a clean replacement. I did not. The crease across the corner looked like damage, but to me it was evidence of pressure survived. Some proof belongs in folders. Some proof belongs where only your hands can feel it.